talk to me about some of your reflections on the last year that the Growth Council, the CMO Council, has had.
The Growth Council, one of the most exciting years we've ever had. The Growth Council was created out of the necessity by marketers to take their industry back. We've often offloaded industry management to the media, the publishers, the agencies, the researchers, the consultants, the suppliers, and the vendors, never taking responsibility for the direction of where the industry needs to go. And what we started to do was to create the agenda, taking the complexities of marketing subjects, 150, 250 different areas that marketers could go, and to organize them into large strategic buckets that in fact could be understood by the marketers and understand exactly what was important to do what only they can do, which is to be able to drive growth for their brands, their businesses, and the industry. And it was the ability to focus in on generating growth that I think began to unify them, because it was the common agenda. Everybody needs to grow. Everybody wants to grow. But if you read lots of reports, growth is substandard, is suboptimal. So as we began this journey with the creation of the master circle inside the ANA, Ken invited us to come in June and to see whether there was the same desire among the global community of CMOs, that we started to have resonation of the US CMOs. And it did. We sat in a room with 25 of the leaders and the priorities came together. It was a magical moment. But then we had to go do something. And what we had to do was to learn how to take the priority and to create a sustainable business machine. A business machine that just wasn't one and done. Oh, we accomplished something. We wrote a playbook. We wrote a white paper and then left the scene. No, we weren't going to win this battle until we figured out how to do it over the long term. And that's what we've been doing over the past year, is creating these business machines, or developing ones that were relatively immature and then getting them onto the main stage, so that people took them, embraced them, and understood that their eventual maturity would yield the kinds of growth that they need.
What's an example?
Well, the ones that were in development at the time the Growth Council came together were AIM, the Alliance for Inclusive and Multicultural Marketing, and CHER, hashtag CHER, which was focusing on gender equality. So some things that have been created since that point in time are the Talent Forward Alliance, which essentially organizes the industry to focus in on three priorities: academia, reinventing the academic curriculum and making students understand what the marketing career can be. Secondly, upskilling and reskilling, because most marketers don't have the skills to compete in this world. And then third, which is just about underway, is how do you build a better CMO? How do you build a CMO that understands this wide span of responsibilities and understands what is necessary to develop their respective organizations, how to deal with agency relations, how to build their own respective budget, etc. It's a very, very complex job, and no two CMOs are alike. They're like fingerprints. And so developing that commonality is something that we're working on.
So before we get to the year ahead, I'm so curious now, when you talk about taking back responsibility, how do you balance taking responsibility as a marketer with the role of your partner ecosystem?
Yeah.
You know, is that a thing that you guys are helping brands think through?
Yeah, and it starts with a stake in the ground that says it's the marketer's agenda, it's the marketer's money, and when the marketers win, everybody wins. Why? Because you generate more resources that can be distributed to the agencies, media, publishers, consultants, etc. And that's the core premise that had been not necessarily working very productively in the past. Those organizations, those constituencies, didn't necessarily understand that it was the ultimate responsibility to ensure the success of the marketers. And I think in recent years, that vision had been lost, or at least it had been muted in some cases almost disintegrated, because everybody was now either a holding company or a for-profit organization or a principal in order to be able to generate their own respective growth for their own respective shareholders. So I'd say over the past decade that model had changed as the Googles and the Facebooks and the agencies all changed and totally disrupted what the ecosystem looked like. The marketers became almost paralyzed, did not necessarily understand how to react as they were dealing in an increasingly non-transparent world. And in that non-transparency, their ability to navigate and make the ultimate business decisions to build their brands and businesses was frittered away.
So who's doing it well, do you think? Do you see brands that are good examples of how to manage your partner ecosystem?
Not enough. I think this is what this exercise, this collaboration of CMOs, we're all learning together. And this is the beauty of what collaboration is about. And it's the reason why I love the ANA, and I'm not just patting the ANA on its back, but the art of collaboration is the exchange of ideas, because in this complex world, no one's got the #1 license to say we're doing it perfectly. You know, it's the reason why we do conferences and various events, because there are multiple ways to achieve their respective goals. And it's the ability to understand the various options that you have. In fact, when I first got into marketing, my career started in finance, I moved over to marketing. My first boss in marketing said, marketing is nothing more than common sense. He says, if it makes sense here and here, go for it. He says, you're going to have 1,000 options. You're going to only be able to pick 1 or 2. So go figure them out and then go do what you need to do. And that's what marketers have needed to do, is to focus in on these strategic platforms and then to assess the best pathways to be able to get there, which is what we're trying to do through this consortium.
So then let's talk about what's going on for the year ahead with the council.
Well, being in Cannes right now, that's really what we're going to be working on over the course of this next week, is to assess what the CMO community believes are the things that we need to do to be able to accomplish that mission. Now, the priorities have been broken down into four big buckets: data, technology, and measurement; brain innovation, creativity and experience; talent; and society and sustainability, which includes equality, diversity, brain purpose. And within those are, again, very, very large buckets. We have to make some key bets. We already started to make some key bets. But in that regard, we have to figure out how hard, how fast do we want to be able to push to engineer that next level of success. So one of the goals this week is to identify, when we return here in 2020, what it is we exactly want to accomplish, and then be able to report back on that. Now, that's not to say we go away for a year and just, work in our own laboratory and not doing anything. Rather, the global community is now being connected. We are talking with China and France and England as part of this exercise, and building our community in a more integrated way. It's kind of what the WFA does, but we're dealing almost exclusively with the CMOs on this international basis.